Today, I would like to do a piece on a guy that I met in Leavenworth. This guy had already been in prison when I met him. He was there before I was. I got to Leavenworth in 1994. And this guy is a major guy out of Detroit. One of the reasons I ended up coming encounter with this guy was because a guy named Cole and a few other guys from Detroit was always telling me about the guy that Biggie Smalls wrote the crack cocaine 10 commandments or 10 laws or 10 principles of drug business. This guy is one of the most smartest men I ever met in my life while I was in Leavenworth. And I done met a few of them. I done met Sundiata Kohli, I done met Leonard Patatier, I done met a bunch of guys that was real smart in federal prison, and a lot of these guys took me under their wing and they showed me the basics. They showed me a lot of things that, even Doc Holliday from Los Angeles, and he's a big guy at the BGFs, and I was set up under these guys for years, and I always learned things from these guys. But I wanted to talk about this guy. His name is Marlo. He's one of the Chambers brothers out of Detroit. One of the most smartest, disciplined guys that I ever met, and I had an opportunity to be in the same unit with him. And one day I was a young guy, and I was in a unit, and I was trying to get somebody to help me learn law and to help me learn how to win my case. And a guy named Cole from Detroit told me that Marlo would look over my transcripts and give me a diagnosis of what I should be doing or what I should do. But I always seen this guy on tier stretching. He was real quiet, he was real low key, and if you don't pay attention to him, he'll walk right by you, and he wouldn't even know who he was, and you wouldn't even know what he was about, and you wouldn't even know what he'd be doing. But I used to always see him go down to the meetings they had down in the meeting room. I ran into a guy named Jerry Lewis Bay. I ran into a lot of the guys that was Moors. I ran into a lot of guys in Nation Islam, Brother Leroy out of Boston. I ran into a bunch of guys that was Sundiata Kohli. I ran into Sister Shariki that actually worked on the radio station, and I ran into a bunch of guys that I met there. But this guy Marlo was a special guy, and I really didn't even understand who I was around until one day he told me, say, man, I'm gonna read your transcripts. He said, man, I only get 6 hours of sleep at night. He was the most disciplined guy I ever seen. So I started paying attention to him. So I gave him my transcripts, which was like 15 volumes. And he read my transcripts, and he told me, say, yeah, man, I got some good news for you. And I need you to holler at me a little bit later in the day. So, okay, I said, okay. But as Marlo was reading my transcripts, I had an opportunity to read a book that was called, I forgot the name of it, but they had wrote a book on Marlo, and Marlo book they was talking about the book and him inside the book, and they say that he used to have a big operation all the way from Detroit, and he would drive his money down to the country of Arkansas, he was from the same state that Bill Clinton was from. I don't know, I forgot the name of the city in Arkansas, because sometimes I used to go to Pine Bluff in Arkansas City, but this guy was from the same city that Bill Clinton is from in Arkansas, and I think they really rubbed it in because he was from that state. But to talk about Marlo and his case and the things that he did for me, and I read in the book that Marlo had something like a life sentence in the state, and he wrote a handwritten motion to the court on a prior conviction, and the prior conviction got overturned, and Marlo was able to get out of jail. He'd escaped a life sentence or whatever he had, but you really couldn't tell how old Marlo was by looking at him. So when Marlo told me that I had an issue on A51, which was one of my priors that wasn't valid enough for them to give me a life sentence, that was a big thing for me because that's all I was fighting all those years was a prior conviction. So Marlo told me that we were gonna have to do a motion. So I texted him, I said, man, we want to meet in the library so you can type it out. He said, no, I'm gonna have it ready for you tonight. So later on that evening, we was talking. He said, yeah, man, in the morning, you be able to mail this motion on. So later on that night, he gave me the motion, and I looked at the motion, and I said, man, this is like little scrabby, like somebody wrote. They got a thing called a Gideon issue where a guy wrote a motion on toilet paper and it went to the Supreme Court and got won. But I didn't know all this back then. But Marlo wrote me a handwritten motion to reduce a prior conviction out of California. But when I looked at the motion, I was like, man, I don't know, man. This don't look like it's gonna work, right? And I'm looking at the guy. He's a real simple guy. He looked at me and was like, what, you want me to type you a 100-page motion or something just for a little prior to be reduced? But I'm looking at this guy, man. I'm like, he didn't charge me anything, but I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, is this guy serious? So I said, okay. So I went to ask Cole. I said, Cole, you think? Cole said, man, don't even worry about it. Just, it ain't gonna hurt. Just send it in. So I put the stamps on it, I certified it, and I sent it to Los Angeles. But what I didn't know was Marlo had already knew that this prior wasn't the proper prior that you need to get a life sentence, and the motion was written up in a way where when the courts got it, they looked at it and they was like, oh, okay. So it took them a long time to respond. Come to find out that he was right, and the prior got reduced later on as I wrestled with the court to fight it. But one day we got kind of like separated, and I hadn't seen Marlo for years. And one day I see Marlo in Atwater. Marlo came to Atwater and they put him in another unit, and they was telling me that this guy just got here and don't nobody know him. He from Detroit, and a lot of guys, they was acting funny with the sales. So I went over there and I asked the guy, I said, man, what is this guy supposed to be? This is a good friend of mine, and anything that this guy need, make sure you give it to him, and you make sure that he get in a sale. And I told my homie Spike from 30s, I say, hey, Spike, this guy is a good guy. I've been knowing this guy for many years, and he was with a guy named Tuck. Tuck had just came out of ADX for a murder. So when I see Tuck, I mean Tuck, Bam, from guys from Detroit. I knew a lot of guys from Detroit, from LA. I knew a dude named D that used to mess with Melvin Butler. I knew T got out here and killed, and I know this other guy that had a beauty shop in the mall. I forgot his name, but anyway, I'm trying to get Marlo situated in a cell, and all these guys act like they didn't want no selling. So I went up to Spike from 30s. I said, listen, Spike, do me a personal favor. This guy's a personal friend of mine. I need you to make sure you let him move in the cell with somebody that's going to let him get the bottom bunk or whatever. Marlo is no problem. I'm telling you, man, this guy is the real deal. A lot of guys don't know him, and this guy is somebody. And Spike gave me his word that he would do it. And I came over there the next day. I say, hey, Marlo, what's going on? He said, hey, Fish, they took care of me. Spike took care of me. My homie Fat Dog from Reno, 11-8. They was in the unit with him. Big Deucey was over there. Big Juan from Compton. And all those guys was over in the unit, but they was acting funny with this guy at first. So I came over there again, and they was like, okay, everything's situated. Not even 6 months later, me and Marlo used to walk around the track, and Marlo was telling me that he invented the logo, stop snitching, and stuff like that, and no N-word. But to make a long story short, Marlo actually came out on, 6 months later, he came out on American Gangster. And when Marlo came out on American Gangster, they sit in the TV room, and they talking about Marlo and his brothers, Chamber brothers, how they used to throw dollar bills in the church and run and then just give the church the money and never even worried about it. But one day Marlo told me he bought 20 Ibrox cash for his workers, and a lot of guys didn't know Marlo was finna be on American Gangster. So when he got on American Gangster, everybody want to be his friend now. And I went on and I told him, I said, I told y'all, man, this guy is one of the big guys in Detroit. Now everybody want to be his friend. And then all the other American Gangsters came out, Tootie Reese, Melvin Butler, All of these guys came out after that, and Marlo is the real deal. And I just wanted to explain that this guy is the guy that a lot of people don't know, that this guy is one of the most smartest drug dealers I ever met in my life from Detroit, and he taught me a lot, and I'm still learning from what he taught me, and this guy needs to be on American Gangster too.